Hey. Okay, so Dark Ascension 2 has a pretty big public update or public beta update today. So what they're starting to do is they're starting to do what they're calling the Steadfast Stewards update. So over the next couple of months, they're going to be adding a lot of they're going to be fixing tooltips, doing some quality of life changes, um, alongside finishing the last hero reworks, which are Plague Doctor, Grave Robber, Alien Leper, Occultist. Occultist is on this one, so they'll have 4 hero reworks to do after this. But this is a pretty big patch. This is on the public beta branch, so if you are not going to get this unless you want to, which you can opt into with either Steam or Epic, I believe also. But I kind of want to just go through this. I haven't seen these patch notes yet, so I kind of want to go through them live, partly just to give you guys, I guess, kind of a mindset of somebody who's played this game way too much, and also because the Occultist is my favorite hero. So when it came down to, or when they had they did a survey a couple months ago for everybody to put their top 5 heroes, and Occultist was my number 1. So I'm excited for this rework. Although Warlock is my Alchemist. I know Alchemist for a lot of people is like their comfort path, or like just dumb broken path. Warlock was that for me. So really curious to see what the changes are as we kind of get into this. But yeah, I'll be going over through this whole update specifically on the occultist changes. So if you don't know who I am, I stream every day, twitch.tv/MarinerHawk. I have like 3,200 hours, I believe, in this game. As you can imagine, way more than any normal human would have. And I've streamed this game more than anybody on the planet, which also is probably a questionable achievement, but hey, I'll take it. So I'm really curious what this is going to be like. So if you would like to give any feedback to the devs, you can do that. You can do it in the Darkest Dungeon Discord, which is in the description, alongside these patch notes and everything else basically that you need for this. So let's get into it. They talk about, okay, there's a Steam discussion thread. Basically, the idea is that they're going to be doing, at least on the public beta branch, which again you can opt into or you don't have to be into. They're going to be doing they say weekly updates basically, and they'll change a lot. At the very end of, I believe they said mid-July or end of July, we will get this actual big update to the actual game for everybody. But in the meantime, yeah, they're taking feedback. So if you have any feedback, give it to them. Academic view now displays when skills ignore tokens, when the skill requires certain conditions, speed and stress resistance. Hero skill cooldown, skill uses, and conditions are now displayed here too. Okay. We've opted to start with dynamic information, then plan to update specific enemy info where it makes sense, such as bosses, unique enemies. Academic view should provide a rough, generalized outline of what an enemy can do and from where, but should remain accurate without adding confusion. There are many enemies in the game. There will likely be missing or incorrect strings. Please let us know if you come along any bugs. More information is always better. DD2 is better than DD1 when it comes to not having to have the wiki open all the time. But you still, in this game, sometimes it does help to have the wiki open. So any less situations where you have to do that and everything is just in the game is better. Certain tokens will now appear depending on the context, such as hero shrines. Okay, that's interesting. So my understanding basically for that is the token glossary is going to be specific based on the battle that you're currently in, depending on if you're in like a boss fight, because I know the boss fight one's on there, like for the fish, like all of the deep tokens aren't in there, so I guess it'll be in there and it'll explain that while you're in that fight, so that's nice. Tokens now have duration that display in tooltips the same as dot durations. God fucking bless. If that's what I think it is, God bless, because yeah, people have been complaining for a long time. The main thing people have said um is like it should flash when they're about to run out, and it definitely should. Like the tokens, especially when you play like Duelist. If you're not used to kind of if you're not used to it, losing dodge pluses can suck. I had a run in Kingdoms where that happened recently, where I was guarding my frontline runaway, and then I didn't know that the guards were gonna run out, and the guards ran out and they just blew her up. So that's nice that that's there. That's good. Health bars now have quarter lines. Interesting. It's something we're testing to help provide additional clarity for health threshold requirements. Okay. Quarter lines. Okay, that's interesting. That'll be nice to see when it is nice to see, I guess. Just skimming through this. Inventory and vitrine can now be accessed at the crossroads, respectively, with IZ on keyboard or L left trigger, right trigger on gamepad. Okay, that's good. Yeah, because the vitrine was kind of scuffed to try to get through as you're driving through, so that's nice. Crits no longer increase the duration by dots for +2 rounds for enemies and heroes. Interesting. So instead of a 3-round dot being a 3-round dot being 3 rounds and then 5 when it crits, it's gonna be 3 all the way. Huh. We want to experiment Dot's power level as well as opening new avenues to grant these kinds of effects from different sources. By removing the generic plus round donation on all crits, we can diversify with more ease. Interesting. Well, it sounds like they have a plan for this. So if they have a plan for it, I'm down to see how it plays out. As well as opening up new avenues to grant these kinds of effects from different sources. So that makes me think like in the reworks maybe, like Plague Doctor rework specifically, you could have like a Radiance kind of ability. But instead of it adding piercing, it adds duration or something like that. Or maybe they want to have more trinkets or anything that's interesting. Increased chances to encounter Crypt Keeper in the catacombs. I'm down with that. The Crypt Keeper's cool. He's a pain in the ass, but he's good. Default in quirk chance reduced from 80% to 50%, and Vestal Seeker guarantees 1 quirk instead of 2. Okay. Heard feedback that a confession quirk should replace ins too frequently. This is experimental change to see how it feels. There's a chance these values will be reverted if they aren't well received. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that a lot. That the skills get over. Yeah, you cycle out quirks quickly, and you can tell that they had changed it quite a bit in Kingdoms. At least in my opinion, you can tell because a lot of the times you could have like no joke, you could almost have the same, at least like 2 quirks maybe for like a long majority of the run if you never get them from like in items or anything like that. So that's interesting. Ancestors statue trinkets have been changed from indelible to ancestral. I don't know if that makes a difference at all other than just change it. Now after killing the Chirurgeon, patients can be found in Gaunt row battles for 3 regions. Interesting. Changes intended to add moments of player reactivity where the game reacts based on choices influenced by the player. We're planning to update military barricades and Warlord encounters or something. Interesting. I mean, the patients, they're fucking, woof, the patients are tough. But them not having the guaranteed crit hopefully would make your life easier. I wonder if this is just like, patients can be found in Gaunt row battles. So I wonder if it would be, like, instead of the 4 zombies, it would be 4 patients, or it would be, like, 3 lost souls and 1 patient. I wonder how that works. Single leech is no longer dropped by the Chirurgeon. Now has a 5% chance to drop from any patient. Okay. Single leech, the chance to get rid of a disease, the combat item. Elite battle advantage no longer has +1 speed. Hasten battle advantage reduced from +4 to +2. They really, with them taking away from ordainment too. They really have damped down the enemies having extra speed, which is probably a good thing because it is pretty painful when you kind of like don't even get to play the game. So hasten is not nearly as bad. If anything, probably one of those situations where you're like way ahead of the enemies. At least it'll only bring it down to maybe they'll be even with you at least instead of way ahead of you. Only hero trinket and hero signature in-item hero goals will generate when the altar of hope is completed. Okay. Wheel and armor now have scaling effects based on the number of wheels or armor rather than only effects when full. That is really, really good. I like that. Because it feels kind of bad, especially when you have like the stagecoach items for them. And instead of having 5 armor, you only have 4 now, but that's not good enough to have the 100% effect. So that's really nice. True Entropy now has a chance to apply stealth, so that makes it, I believe, 6 positive tokens in 3 negatives, I believe. So True Entropy statistically is an alright trinket, but you never want to roll. You don't want to roll the negative sometimes. Champion enemies now have champion tag displayed. Okay. Added Altar of Hope location. The Dam. Okay, this is a run mutator area that offers a toggle to enable retreating and confessions. Selling at the Hoarder and Confessions and having the mountain appear at all ends. The mountain appear at all ends. You just fight it whenever. There are plans to add additional options when and where appropriate. The name is also work in progress. We want to allow retreat to be a option in Confessions, but we want to retain the intention of making the most out of bad situations. The successful retreat effects in Confessions are as follows. +3 loathing. Holy. That's crazy. -1 stress for each hero. All values are subject to feedback and adjustment. The starting values are intentionally high to ensure that impact is felt. I was gonna say, as soon as they said the values are subject to feed and adjustment, I was like, yeah, they're probably not keeping that loathing. +3 loathing is crazy. That is super. That's a super negative for retreating. They'll probably lower that. There's no way that stays as 3. I feel like that is just brutal. But I mean, you know, retreating sucks. Retreating is supposed to be the final, the last resort, I guess. So That's interesting, though. They made it a toggle. Have the mountain appear as all ends. It's really funny. All right, Shambler's Eye. Replaced on crit. Binding Shadows. Gain unchecked power to gain on kill unchecked power. Okay. This is a temporary change until its trinkets are properly updated. Okay. Got it. What is this? Spoilers. Range actions did not invert crit tokens. What's the invert of a crit token? Either way. All right. Occultist. I think this is gonna end up being all right. I'm not like worried that Occultist is gonna be bad. I trust their reworks. But I'm just really interested how it's gonna be. So it's gonna be interesting, especially with him having the unchecked power token. So dev note: the Occultist core kit has been adjusted to strengthen certain identities while maintaining or improving his nature as a mixed support offensive hero with extremely flexible positioning. Additionally, the big three unchecked power skills have generally had much of their raw power moved into their base, more costly versions. The primary goal of mastery value being reduced activation costs and incremental improvements or additional effects, such as a shuffle on Anamnesis Plus or block ignore on Burning Stars. Okay, interesting. Unchecked power, burn chance, increased from 33% to a flat 100%. Obviously, that's like, that's like worse, but it's a little better because at least you can like, you prepare for it now instead of just being like, yeah, I won't roll the 1 and 3, or at least that's me that does that. Power, unchecked power token, power burn value now scales with the token from 1 to 3. Okay. Duration is 2. So you can get 3 burn over 2 turns if you have 3 unchecked power tokens. Okay. Can now be resisted. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. If they're going to make it worse, that makes it sense that they have it resisted then. We want to make unchecked power tokens penalty something you can engage with while also making its penalty a bit punchier to better accomplish the power chipping away to health. Now options to build around resistance or around effects that respond to the presence of burn dots with greater reliability. Okay, that should be interesting. This is Wanderer, by the way. Abyssal Artillery Plus no longer consumes unchecked power on to apply stun. Okay, Abyssal Artillery Plus now grants unchecked power token on crit per target crit. Okay. Assuming they didn't take that feels like an ability that crits a lot. I forget if it's 10% off the top of my head, but 10% for double targets. Either way, it feels like it's an ability that hits a lot. If you give him a crit token too, that's right off the bat. You can give him 2 unchecked power tokens for that, so that's pretty cool. We wanted to provide an additional but not entirely reliable way to generate unchecked power. Area of effect skills provide multiple opportunities to score crits, increasing the odds of a lucky unchecked power decoration. Yeah, that's kind of what I said. And then obviously, anytime if he has like deadly, or if he has any sort of crit chance token that because if it's an AoE it does more. I don't know how often really the sucks that the stun's not there anymore, but there's so many stuns in the game now. I'm not sure really it needs to be there anymore, but I will miss it, but that's all right. But maybe that's on another paths now. I guess I'm just looking at Wander. Binding Shadows and Binding Shadows Plus no longer reduce debuff resist on combo. They ignore stealth. Okay, interesting. Damage got buffed a little bit. Binding Shadows' chance to gain unchecked power is increased 100% when the Occultist is stealth. Oh, okay. Binding Shadows now grants 1 stealth when hitting a target with combo. Oh, okay. Okay. Binding Shadows Plus buffed. So they're both 100%. Okay. Binding Shadows Plus now gains 2 stealth when hitting a target with combo. Binding Shadows has been reworked to provide a unique... Yeah, it's a unique identity for sure. Improve reliability of unchecked power generation and introduce some stealth and stealth interaction into the Occultist kit. Okay. Okay, I'm down with it. Demon's Pull no longer clears corpses. Damn. Damn, I use that a lot. Demon's Pull now has the same unchecked power stun as the mastered version. Okay, so the 2 unchecked power tokens for a stun is now unmastered. Interesting. Demon's Pull was widely considered to be too good in its unmastered state, so the corpse clear effect is now only present when mastered. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Bit of a weird... Oh, no, that's fine, actually. Yeah, I was thinking mastered is a new 2 unchecked power tokens. That's fine. Because honestly, you never really mastered, at least I never did, you never really mastered Demon's Pull anyways. So I guess that works, making it on the mastery now. It's going to suck kind of for early game. Especially for me, because I use that corpse clear a lot, but, well. Additionally, in order to keep its potential consumption of unchecked power a consistent point of consideration like skill, the stun has been added to the unmastered version. Okay. Sack Stab buff, Sack Stab buff. Sack Stab Plus now is 100% damage for targeting a corpse. Okay, interesting. Sacrificial Stab's damage range has been slightly tightened to increase the chances of killing blows and subsequent unchecked power generation. As this kill effect applies to corpses, we decided to make it easier for Sack Stab to land kills on those in particular. I'm not even sure if that was like super known. That Sacrificial Stab mastered because it gives unchecked power token on kill. And that worked on corpses too. So it was really good with like the Carrion Eater pet. If you could kill it, or obviously the General's Trophy that does extra damage to corpses, it was actually like not a super bad way to get unchecked power tokens. If you can one shot it, you shouldn't be like, you know, chopping at the corpse. But that's interesting that they made that kind of more of a thing now, more of an identity thing, when it kind of felt like maybe like a throwaway, just like, yeah, have it work on corpses. That's interesting. Weird Construction Bleed reduced from 3 to 2. Okay, so this may not actually sound like that much. But I'll tell you actually why that's important, because there's a lot of the storage room key, right? The Plague Doctor's item that gives 2 regen on unchecked power tokens, or Divine Comfort, Vestal's AoE healing ability with or AoE regen ability, sorry. That gives 2 unmastered, or Hint of Home, the trinket in the fetter that gives 2 regen sometimes when hit. So this is actually more important than it seems, because now it means that a weird heal, if you have some form of regen, a weird heal, even if it's the smallest regen, a weird heal will not outdo that regen. And so that's actually big, because it means that you can be, if somebody has more aggressive, if somebody has regen, sorry, you can be a little more aggressive with the way that you heal them without the fear of killing them if you have this unmastered. So I actually think this maybe seems like it's kind of a small change, but it's actually a pretty decent change. Weird Construction Plus will now apply 2 stealth when consuming unchecked power. With Weirder Construction being a signature skill, we decided to differentiate across all paths. Okay, oh, interesting. While leaving the core of the skill completely unchanged, aside from the reduction in unmastered bleed, as it could often root and significantly more damage than recovery. That's another thing too. Yeah, is instead of doing 9 damage, if you let the bleed go out all the way, it'll do 6 damage. So that's good. Apply 2 stealth to what? The target? That's crazy. All right, Anamnesis. Anamnesis launch ranks. Okay, so they did make it usable for rank 3. Okay. Oh, at least on Wander. Unchecked power token requirement increased from 2 to 3. Okay. Interesting. The bleed buff, that's good. Damage buff, that's good. Anamnesis plus crit increased from 5% to 10%. Again, I'm assuming, yeah, okay. I'm assuming, yeah, okay, so it's still a 4-hit ability. It's still an AoE ability. 10% crit on an AoE ability is pretty crazy, actually. And again, you add something like Deadly, and that makes it a 25% chance, and it's a hit on every target, so it's not realistic. It's not unrealistic to think that you could obviously like crit 2 of the targets. Relatively consistent, which is pretty crazy. So applying the shuffle is really interesting too. I really like that, actually. I think that's interesting. Anamnesis has been rebalanced to improve overall values and unchecked power skill by improving the damage, bleed, and adding additional disruption. Honestly, the biggest part of this probably is like, all this stuff is super cool, but honestly, probably the biggest part of it is just the fact that you can use it in rank 3 now. I don't know how popular. I really liked Aspirant. So I didn't mind playing him in the front, but admittedly, it did feel pretty bad with Chaotic Offering, especially when he would shuffle himself back, or you would get pushed back a single rank from rank 2 to rank 3, and now you can't use Anamnesis. So I think this is going to be huge, and I think seems like people are definitely going to be using it. Assuming Warlock is not as busted as it was before. Burning Stars and Burning Stars no longer apply combo. I always thought that was kind of weird anyways. It's nice, but I always thought that was kind of weird. I think it was probably just thrown in there just to make the ability, just because it takes unchecked power tokens, so it's like you kind of want to get something more out of it than straight damage. I always thought that was kind of weird, but that's okay, I guess. Increase from 2 to 3. Okay, so both of these take 3 unchecked power tokens now. Interesting. Burning Stars increased. Wow, it's surprising that that's a buff, at least on Wanderer. So that means it crits for 27. Oh, but it did lower the, okay, it lowered the crit chance. Okay, that makes sense. But anything, honestly, arguably more important in Darkest Dungeon 2 than anything else is raising the floor, because using Burning Stars for 8 feels really bad. Burning Stars for 12 doesn't feel nearly as bad, honestly. Like, that actually makes a big difference. So no longer ignores block. Okay, Burning Stars has been adjusted in accordance with the previously mentioned design philosophy, while also, it is supposed to be raining. I was stuck on refining. Reining in some of its overall power. Okay, Malediction, also 3 unchecked power tokens. Okay. Malediction, Malediction Plus no longer apply a dot-oriented debuff. Is it just changing completely then? Yeah, it looks like it is. Okay. Ignores dodge. That's interesting. I assume that's dodge plus also. Maybe not. Malediction Plus no longer decreases. Okay. Ignores debuff. Okay, so it's a debuff thing now. Ignores 60 debuff resist. God damn. That's crazy. So that means, I don't think, are there anything in the game? Is there anything in the game other than maybe like a couple bosses with like 100 debuff res? Is there anything that this won't go through now? That's crazy. Now applies a debuff that applies combo to the target on turn start for 3 turns. Okay. Now applies to a debuff that applies combo to the target for 5 turns. Okay. We decided to experiment with providing unique versions of Malediction for each path. The previous dot-oriented in Malediction has been moved to the Aspirant, while Wanderer now has a version designed to facilitate combo-heavy parties. Huh. Applies combo to the target on turn start. Huh. So it gives it like the Star of the Chosen kind of thing. Huh. There's a lot of stuns. A lot of stuns for sure that go on combo, like Pistol Shot, Disorienting Blast, Stunning Blow. You could stun the hell out of a target. I'm guessing this is probably how it's similar was to before, where you're mostly putting it on bosses. I can imagine like a Highwayman. Highwayman or Runaway, really. They do 6 dot on Searing Strike and Open Vein or Slice Vein. So you can make that a 6 bleed over 3 turns. Or a 6 burn, either one. If you knew you had like a fast Highwayman or a fast Runaway. Oh, I guess that's turn start. Oh, it's turn start, not... Who's turn start? There's turn start? I was thinking round start. Applies combo to the target on turn start. Huh. You could find some pretty interesting things with that. Alright, down to Ritualist. Ritualist no longer has a 33% chance to receive vulnerable on turn start. His path no longer has innate debuff res piercing on skills. Yep, that stuff's all gone. The Ritualist has been updated to incorporate his debuff-oriented nature into his mechanics in a less passive way, while also leaning on his curses for a more path-appropriate way of generating unchecked power tokens to spend on his skills. Ritualist benefits from some of the updated Wander elements as well. Okay, so yeah, they've been taking this innate stuff, the chance to gain positive tokens. They've been taking this kind of innate stuff away from paths, so it makes sense. I kind of figured this would be gone too. Let's see what it gets in return. Unchecked power token grants 10% debuff resist piercing per token. Okay, so it's kind of like antagonist with Bliss in that sense. Unchecked power reduces the Occultist debuff resist by 10% per token. Oh, interesting. So the lower debuff resist was on Aspirant before. Now it's on Ritualist. Interesting. Okay. In addition to unchecked power token standard burn, we wanted the nature of unchecked power on paths to reflect the path itself. So the previous innate debuff res piercing on his skills is now an element of the token. Rather than suffering random vulnerable tokens, the Ritualist now loses some of their own debuff resist as the token stack goes. Okay. Probably not too bad because he's in the back. It'd be frustrating occasionally, but probably not too bad. Abyssal Artillery is now a path skill. I'm not entirely sure what that means. Does not gain unchecked power on crit. But it gains a speed token on crit. Interesting. This one you can't crit token it as well as you can with the other one, because the other one give you the Wanderer will give you unchecked power tokens. This you can't get 2 speed tokens unless they change something. So that is interesting though, speed token, especially considering I'm assuming his I assume path skill. I guess path skill means it's affected. But like when they highlight it, yeah, okay, that's what it means. It is interesting. Yeah, I can see it being assuming weird is still, without reading, I haven't read into it yet, but assuming weird is still a good heal. That'll be interesting. Binding Shadows is a path skill. Okay, so you can use it everywhere. Interesting. Binding Shadow Plus does not gain unchecked power. Reduces target debuff. So this still has what it was before. Okay. Okay, so it goes from 20% to 3 rounds to 30% for 5 rounds. Okay, so this is what they were talking about. Not that this had the round duration before, but this is where they're talking about with dots. Where they can have things for 5 rounds now. 5 rounds is crazy. That is so long. Especially considering you can stack that relatively easy. That's crazy. You could really, again, with two hits and back-to-back if you want to use the combo that way. That's all their debuff resist. Crazy. We wanted to keep an amped version of the former Wanderer Binding Shadows, and this is the right path for it. While Unchecked Power assists the Occultist in landing his own debuffs, Binding Shadows can help the rest of the party land theirs. Duration is measured in rounds in order for it to have more value against multi-action bosses. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so any bosses that have like multiple, because this is 3 rounds, not or 5 rounds, not 5 turns. So that's, I mean, in theory, 15 rounds or 15 turns for some certain bosses. That's crazy. Sack Stab's not a path skill, does not grant unchecked power token on kill, does not gain 100% damage from corpses. As the Ritualist can generate unchecked power more effectively via curses, we decided to remove the on-kill element from Sack Stab for now in order to balance generation options between the paths. So Sack Stab's just nerfed on this path. That's fine. You were usually using you were almost always. I don't really know of a reason to run Sack Stab on Ritualist anyways, at least the old one. So Weird Reconstruction and Weird Reconstruction Plus, healing adjusted to match Wanderer. Weird reduced from 3 to 2. Weird Reconstruction Plus now removes all negative tokens on the target when consuming unchecked power. Okay, interesting. Weird Reconstruction's healing and bleed values have been normalized across all occultist paths to give an additional unchecked power token effect unique to the path. So it isn't just better on Ritualist, so that's interesting. So instead of a debuffer / healer, it appears that he's just a debuffer now. Oh. Interesting. Interesting. I wonder if there is a healing path at all. I kind of like the idea of occultists having a healing path somewhere, but maybe they just assume you get the healing received through like trinkets and stuff, because there is more than like there used to be, like Kyrogen, Apron and stuff like that. Alright, Malediction and Malediction Plus now ignore dodge. Malediction, unchecked power requirement, increase from 2 to 3, so that's normal on every path. It doesn't do the dot stuff anymore, and now ignores debuff resist. Malediction now applies a debuff that grants the attacker a random positive token when hitting the target that lasts for 2 rounds. Malediction Plus now inverts all strength, speed, block, and dodge tokens on the target when it's initially used. Malediction has been given a unique identity per path. This one was inspired by the old Ritualist proc chance for positive tokens when using curses. Grants the attacker. God, I was so confused. But expanded to allow other party members to benefit as well. Okay, so grants the attacker. So that means occultist. Grants the occultist a random positive token when hitting the target. Okay. Okay, so you use Malediction, it'll invert all the targets. Or it'll invert strengths to weaks, etc. And then every time the occultist hits that target, he gets a positive token. Interesting. Lasts for 2 rounds. I believe, if I'm understanding this correctly. Huh. Random positive token. We'll have to see. I mean, it's free stuff. So I think like when that'd be great to use. Obviously something that gets a ton of, yeah, like Warlord or something that gets a ton of block pluses. Be able to invert those to vulnerables could be pretty crazy. It's just a good counter, I guess. It's a good counter if you're not running like a highway robbery or like a illumination or something like that. So that can be interesting. Vulnerability hex and vulnerability hex plus reduce from vulnerable tokens from 2 to 1. Vulnerability hex and vulnerability hex plus now grant 1 unchecked power. Interesting. While it may seem strange to have a curse path produce less vulnerable, we felt that the guaranteed unchecked power token, regardless of whether you hit or whether the curse works, made for a strong point of exchange and generation balance without making this a Wanderer plus version of hex. So it does say regardless of whether you hit, so you can send that with a blind. I guess if you were blind, that's not a bad way to do it. If you were blinded, because at least that way, even if the vulnerability hex doesn't hit, you get an unchecked power. That feels like one of those things. That feels kind of weird. That feels like one of those things I might have to play a little bit to see really, like, truly how that feels. Weakening Curse Plus no longer removes strength and crit tokens from the target. Weakening Curse now applies a debuff that grants the occultist 1 unchecked power token if the target attacks. This lasts for 2 turns. As expressed previously, we wanted to make curses a central point in the Ritualist unchecked power generation without allowing them to become Wanderer plus like they used to be. While it doesn't strip any positive offense tokens, the skill can be passively generate a lot of unchecked power, particularly where area of effects are involved. Still weakening the target. The right timing can generate an entire stack at once. If the target attacks, so that means if you put it on, if you were to debuff like one of the sprawl whippers, and they did like Taskmaster, then you would gain 4, if I understand that correctly. So I guess it's, I guess that's what they're saying, because it says if the target attacks. I guess that works like that. Like if you know an AoE is coming, then you can apply that. And then he'll just get full unchecked power. Interesting. Yeah, this one's tough because it's not damage based, right? So this one's kind of tough. I feel like you'd have to play it to like really get like a flow on it and like see how it feels. Huh. Definitely very intricate compared to what it used to be. But I feel like this is one of those things that once you get a flow of it, I assumed it was gonna keep the weird buff, to be honest. I mean, removing negative tokens is interesting. So it gives it like a confessor kind of value to it. I'll have to play it. I'll have to try it out and see how that feels. It's less Ritualist before was kind of just, I don't want to say brain dead, but very like simple in the sense of like you get the value you get for pressing like a button. Like with vulnerability hex or with the weakens or with anything like that was pretty crazy. So it's gonna be interesting to see. You have more options now, which I know that they love doing with some of these paths. You have more options. There's like a bunch of different things that you can do. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, I'll have to play it and I'll see have to see how it feels. B token is interesting. I assume it still has the 10% crit that it does with Wanderer. Yeah, so it's definitely less dumb just getting value out of. So we'll have to see what that's like. All right, Warlock, let's see what this is. No longer has inherent stuff. Uncheck power now gains 1 damage per token. Okay, interesting. Which would make Abyssal, seems like it would make Abyssal pretty crazy. Uncheck power now reduces max HP by minus 10% per token. Huh. So you still can play the old Warlock where he's just minus HP. He's just tanky. But that makes sense, or he's squishy. But that makes kind of my sense, though. Warlock's unchecked power generation was both a feature and a problem, so it rolled up elsewhere in the path where it can be a feature at a price. The path no longer offers enhanced damage on range skills for free, but instead has a rolled up the increased damage and HP penalty as components of its unique version of unchecked power. Warlock has acquired some small recovery options to assist with his fluctuating match HP, and his beloved positional flexibility and boom potential has been retained. So instead of, so it's a bit like a new Vanguard. Like I don't want to say like a risk reward kind of thing, but maybe. Okay, Abyssal Artillery is the same as it was, or same as Wanderer. Chaotic Offering is now a path skill. Chaotic Offering and Chaotic Offering Plus cannot be actively used during combat. Okay. Chaotic Offering passively. Okay, so it's a passive skill. Interesting. Passively gains a 30% chance to gain unchecked power on round start while equipped. Chaotic Offering Plus grants a 60% chance to gain unchecked power on round start while equipped. Trying to experiment with Chaotic Offering, while the Master version provides nearly twice the chance of unchecked power the old path did, now comes in cost of a skill slot. As long as the skill slot is functionally sacrificed, you can passively uncheck power. Huh. Well, that is definitely an experiment. That's interesting. Honestly, I thought Chaotic Offering into Burning Stars was like kind of dumb in how like easy and consistent it was to use. So I'm interested that it's something else. It's a passive skill now. Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, and it essentially, so in order to get the old 1 in 3 chance, you have to sacrifice a skill. I don't think I hate that, to be honest. I think it's interesting. I don't think I hate that. Maybe it's not the most like fun in the sense that you only have 4 skills, but honestly, like, how many skills are you truly pressing on Warlock anyways, you know? It's kind of like, you know, depending on how you played it, it was kind of like Abyssal, Burning Stars, Chaotic Offering. It still even gives you like 1 slot. Huh, interesting. Okay. Demon's Pull is the same. Backstab's a pass skill. It does not gain unchecked power and does not gain damage in corpses. Okay. Sackstab benefits enough from unchecked power in the path that we opted to keep the older, less tight damage range that Wanderer used to have. In addition, the kill effect for unchecked power was removed to help balance out his generation method. Okay. But yeah, because it still is going to get the +1 damage per token. So it still works out. Sackstab will be pretty, I don't know. We'll see if Warlock ends up getting played in the 3 rank in this. Normally you play him in the 4. You could play him in 3, but normally you play him in the 4, but we'll see. Weird is a path skill. Weird Reconstruction Plus applies 2 regen when consuming unchecked power. The often reduced Warlock gets the safety net version of Weird Reconstruction. We consider just having it skip the bleed since a Warlock's HP is often driven down with an unchecked power penalty, but opted for regen at the same value as the bleed instead. Gives way more ways to interact with or influence the skill's result. Applies to region to the, again, I'm assuming to the person. I mean, region's always nice. So region's always nice. That seems... I'm gonna have to like look at the tooltip for that, to be honest, to really see that. Applies to region, I guess. I'm assuming it's to the person, but this is talking about... You could give him self-regen. Yeah, I mean, that's good value on him. Okay, Anamnesis is now a path skill. Okay, so they did mention earlier how they want Anamnesis to be used on different paths, so it's interesting. Anamnesis and Anamnesis Plus are no longer AoE skills. They ignore block, dodge, stealth, and guard. Stealth too. Okay, interesting. They remove all positive targets from the target. Anamnesis damage reduced to 1, plus the unchecked power damage. Deals an additional 1 damage for each positive on the target. Okay. Positive token on the target. Gains double the damage bonus granted by unchecked power tokens. Okay, so this would be 2 per token instead of 1. Okay. We wanted to do something unique for Warlock's Anamnesis, so opt to do a form of positive token dot bomb, capable of ignoring any defensive tokens and applying very specific damage. Gives a single target damage option when certain defenses are in play that you prefer not to gamble on. Like traditional dot bombs, this does not expunge the source, only the ignore tokens traditionally moved by a damaging attack, and is compatible with tokens such as strength, crit, and weak. Okay. Okay, so this is a bit... I mean, they specifically say it's not, but it's like a Plague Doctor Cause of Death, except it can work with crits and strengths and weaks, but it doesn't get rid of the target. So it's basically, it doesn't get rid of the tokens. Huh. Yeah, that's another one of those I'd have to like play, but you could definitely, again, some like Warlord, something like that, especially Warlord with a weapon rack. That's a lot of right there. If the weapon rack gives him block and a strength, and then he gives himself 3 block pluses, that's right there 5 damage plus everything else that's going on here. It gives it they're interesting uses. So they're giving interesting uses. So that's kind of cool. Burning Stars no longer ignores block or apply combo. Uncheck power tokens. That's one thing that I don't think I'm fathoming enough. Is that it takes extra unchecked power tokens now. So it'll be interesting to see what the rhythm feels like of that. Instead of like Chaotic Offering, and then by the next turn you have 2. Maybe it's still the same, but... Burning Stars gains double the damage granted by the unchecked power token. So again, that +1 per unchecked power token. So you could have up to 3? I don't know, whatever it is. So that, I mean, that could give 12 damage right off the bat if you have 3 unchecked power tokens, so... unmastered. Burning Stars was often the star of the Warlock show, so we decided to keep and improve its maximum boom potential while making it a bit harder to attain. This is now subject to all defensive tokens, but can deliver crushing damage to the undefended. So, at least with the Occultist, it seems like this is a big buff to abilities that get rid of blocks. So whether that be like Confessor Illumination or like Double Cross Highwayman, something like that. Instead of just laughing at blocks, you have to like do something about them. And it sounds like with a lot of these reworks in general, it's less about nerfing the like high damage capabilities or the ceiling of some of these old paths, and it's more about making it harder to get there, which I think is I think is interesting because makes it more fun for the player. And it makes it a little more like skillful, I guess, for lack of a better term, to kind of get there. So interesting stuff. Malediction's a path skill. Malediction applies a debuff with a 50% chance to heal an attacker for 10% when the target is hit. Okay, so it'd be a bit, it's a bit like regen. So you would throw this on a boss, for example, and then everybody that hits the boss, you have a 50% chance to heal. Okay. Applies a debuff. Wow, Warlock's kind of almost a better healer than Ritualist now. Interesting. Malediction applies a debuff with a 33% chance to heal the target for 10% when the target is hit for 2 rounds. These 2 effect chances are rolled independently. So in theory, there's a 1 in 6 chance that they get a 20% heal? Okay. If I understand that correctly. Malediction Plus applies a debuff with a 66% chance to heal an attacker 10% when the target is hit. And again, it's 2 rounds, not 2 turns. Bosses with multiple turns don't get to just run through this, which is good. Malediction Plus applies a debuff with a 33% chance to heal a target for 10% when the target is hit for 2 rounds. So essentially, every time you hit a target with Malediction, it's a 50% chance to heal for 10%, and then additional 33% chance, additional 1 in 3 to heal for another 10%. So it's a 1 in 6 of healing for 20%, if I'm understanding this. And then this would be 2 out of 3 and then 1 in 3. So it'd be a 2 out of 9. So it goes from a 1 out of 6 to 2 out of 9 for healing 20%. Oh, I gotta sneeze, but I can't sneeze. Nobody gambles with healing quite like the Occultist does, and that inspired this Warlock version of Malediction where the heal has no threshold, but also a risk of backfiring by healing the enemy. I'm an idiot. I understand now. These are different. A 50% chance to heal an attacker. So that means... Okay. So it's more gamble. I'm trolling. Okay, forget everything I just said. These are totally different. Okay, so... Every time you hit that target, you have a 50% chance of healing you for 10% and a 33% chance of healing them for 10%. Oh. So then mastering it ups your chance, but doesn't touch their chance. Huh. It's really interesting. I'm kind of surprised that these two are the same. So mastering it, all mastering it does is raise it from a 1 in 2 to a 2 in 3 of healing. I thought for sure it would lower the chance of healing them. Huh, interesting. But it is also 66% chance per hit, as opposed to 50% chance per hit. So, let's see. I can't do the math, whatever the math would be, but basically this may not look like a big change, but exponentially over 4 heroes attacking, or 2 heroes or 3, however many are attacking. It goes exponentially better. Interesting. Heal a target for 10%. They made it gambly. That's interesting. I mean, that's still probably way good in general. The only thing I would worry about is if you're using that on a boss, you're using on the Dreaming General. 10% heal can be a big heal. That could be a big heal. So if you get particularly unlucky, that could be rough. Interesting. Wow, that's very gambly. I wonder, that doesn't sound like off the top of my head something that's going to get used super often. Just because it sounds like the downside is kind of crazy. But I'll have to test it out. It might be one of those things where, like, if you're low health and they're high health anyways, what the hell is an extra 10% to them if a 10% to you is worth that much more? Huh. That's very interesting to see how that plays out. Huh. All right, Aspirant. I thought Aspirant, honestly, was an underrated path. So we'll have to see what it's like now, because it really was just plus melee damage. It wasn't super interesting, but I liked it. So we'll have to see what it is now. No longer gains all the stuff it gained before. Path now has a 66% chance to uncheck power tokens when the Occultist moves. Okay. So that's not even just moving himself. That's somebody else moving too. That's kind of crazy. 66% chance? And you can, in theory, like... Obviously, that's really good for dance teams, but even if you're doing something where you're like what I did a lot was Banneret, Crusader, Holy Lance, and Aspirant, Binding Shadows. That'd be 2 moves, so even right off the bat, that's kind of crazy. Uncheck power on this path additionally gains plus 10% max HP for token. Uncheck power token on this path additionally has a 25% chance per token to apply to mobilize. The effect is resistible. That's so funny, actually. Aspirant has undergone a number of changes intended to retain his front rank capability while enhancing his mobility and filling an off request as dot roll. Okay. His former HP bonus has been rolled into uncheck power, and he uses a very different method of uncheck power duration compared to other paths. That's so funny. So the idea is that it gives you uncheck power tokens and then immobilizes you so you can't get more, but it is resistible. Huh. That seems kind of tough, actually. I mean, depending on where you can use... I assume Binding Shadows still moves, but depending on where you can use Binding Shadows, that seems like maybe that could be kind of tough, because it's going to ruin your flow a little bit if you're dancing with somebody else. Interesting. So it makes him way more tanky. Maybe it's one of those things you dance until he's immobilized, and then you just have him sit in one place and do whatever. Huh. I assume this was from before, so this is probably just the same as Wander, I believe. So it doesn't get the buff like it did with the old Aspirant. Binding Shadows Plus now ignore Stealth. Okay, interesting. Binding Shadows Plus no longer reduce debuff resist. Yeah, no longer have a chance to grant unchecked power. Binding Shadows now grants 1 Stealth when a target has combo, and then 2 Stealth when a target has combo. He's a Stealth tank. Sounds like some interesting use. You could Stealth him and then try to get some unchecked power tokens, get him more tanky. Then when he comes out of Stealth, he's more tanky. As many of the skills have had their damage reevaluated given the ease in which we now gain unchecked power token through them. Yeah, that makes sense. Binding Shadows has otherwise acquired the stealth defensive capabilities of the Wander version. Okay. Sack Stab reduce. No longer gets unchecked power token. Sack Stab and Sacrificial Stab now move the Occultist back 1 rank. Okay. It's 1 block and 1 block plus if the target dies. Okay. And it does gain damage to corpses. Okay. Similar to Binding Shadows, damage on Sacrificial Stab is re-evaluated. Now functions in the dance option, so you're no longer limited to Binding Shadows for movement. Additionally, you can generate block plus tokens from killing blows to enhance front rank survivability. Okay. So you would dance. So I'm thinking like you would dance up with Binding Shadows. Again, it does say it still moves, right? Or I assume it still moves, I guess. Forward like it did on the old Aspirant. And then you just sack stab and try to get block pluses, I guess, as a kill. Weakening Curse no longer path skill. Okay. So they're back to Wanderer. Okay, back to Wanderer. Okay. Oh, okay. So they okay. So Wanderer Anamnesis got the buff to Aspirant. So Aspirant doesn't need the buff on Anamnesis. Okay. Weird Reconstruction now clears bleed, blight, and burn when consuming unchecked power. I have always, maybe not always, but I've said for a while now that there needs to be like 1 more dot clear in the game. So I'm curious if this will feel consistent enough. I guess if you're getting a ton of unchecked power tokens, I'll have to see how this plays. But yeah, it does feel like there needs to like one more dot heal in the game. And this is an interesting way to do it. Have it be him. As the dot roll Occultist path, it felt appropriate to have the bonus unchecked power token for Aspirant to be Flens. This also provides a rare non-plague doctor for broad dot removal. What about the Vestal? What do you mean? What do you mean non? Oh my god, they hate the Vestal. What do you mean rare non-plague doctor op? What about the fucking the Vestal? Why do they hate my girl? Vestal was also in my top 5 if I remember right too. Burning Stars is a path skill. Okay, Burning Stars damage way nerfed. That's way nerfed. Ugh. Okay though. The Burning Stars and Burning Stars Plus now applies 4 burn for 3 turns. Okay, so it's a controlled burn basically. The Burning Stars now copies burn the cultist to the target. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Shout out Vexia. He's had that idea before, applying his own burn to target. Okay, I like that. We received a lot of requests for the version of Burning Stars of Inflected Burn, so here it is with a bit of unique occultist flavor to master. Okay. Copies his burn. I like that. That could be, dude. Is he a Sprawl Slayer now? I guess you'd have to master it, but can you imagine getting a ton of burn in the Sprawl and just throwing it on the enemies? Okay. I like it. Malediction is now a path skill based on the pre-patch version of Malediction with the following adjustments. Ignores dodge, okay. Ignores debuff resist, okay. Okay, increase it's a buff to the... Oh, that's Malediction Plus. Okay, Malediction Plus buffs the dots from 2 to 3, okay. No longer reduces the target's bleed, burn, blight res. And it ignores a shit ton of debuff resist, so it gets the thing... It gets it to, it gets Malediction to land more, which it feels really bad when you would use Malediction and it would get resisted, especially if it was on like a really low percent, like 10 or 20. So the Malediction is going to stick more, but the dots, I assume, can be resisted. I think that's probably a good move. We felt that the fun of Malediction was a roll to inflict dots, not the roll to land the debuff. Yeah, okay. We're on the same fucking wavelength, man. Hire me, Red Hook. So Malediction Plus are generally capable of bypassing most, if not all, the debuff resist without assistance. If you remove the bleed, blight, burn, res debuff, blight, and mastery, but increase the dot value instead to give it a little more punch. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'm assuming, I think those can be resisted, I forget. Plague Doctor Wanderer? Oh, they rework Wanderer. Oh, shit, okay. Oh, okay, I didn't expect this. Let's look at this. This time, Wanderer is the only rework Plague Doctor path. Her other paths will be ready for testing in a future update. Okay, so I assume that's just updating it to make it, I guess, decent. or usable in some way, because you really never use, like, unless you want to incision and unless you don't want to lose the piercing or the dot, I guess, damage. You really don't run Wander a lot unless you're forced to. Dev note, the core kit of the Plague Doctor is undergone some revisions to improve some older utility skills as well account for the recent change of crits and dots. Some additional adjustments have been made to slightly loosen positioning restrictions in some cases and promote more party composition options. Okay. Max HP is increased from 28 to 32. I think, I could be wrong. I think this is the first time, at least anytime recently, where a hero just straight up got better. They straight up buffed health. That's kind of crazy. Blinding Gas plus crit increased from 10% to 15%. 15% crit on a 2-hit ability is pretty crazy. I know it's a debuff ability. It's not like damage or anything, but it's still crazy. A little improvement to a non-damaging skill to provide additional mastery value. I assume it still has the days, right? Because the days, I think the days on Blinding Gas is pretty crazy. Cause of death damage increased from 75% dot value to 100%. Cause of death plus increased from 100% dot value to 150. I think Cause of Death is a stupid ability. Because you can very easily get Cause of Death, or at least you could. Maybe with the dot duration changes now, maybe it's a little different. You could very easily get it to like a game-breaking value. Meaning like I'm talking like 40 plus, like very easily. I think maybe that's a hot take. I think Cause of Death. I think Cause of Death shouldn't exist in this game. There's just not. The enemies are, there's just no situation where they can take that much damage out of nowhere and not feel like it's a completely stupid ability. Increasing the dot value to 150%. That seems kind of, I don't know, man. I don't like that personally. I think it's just too easy to set up. But maybe with the duration changes, maybe that'll be different. No longer applies combo. That's another one I felt that was kind of random alongside the Burning Stars, but not bad, just a little random. Cause of Death Plus now has execution of 1. Okay. If nothing else, that's nice. If nothing else, that's nice. Like because then that means you have a Plague Doctor ability with an execute. So you wouldn't even really need to have a super dot team in order to get value out of that. If you really needed an execute, there's situations. We wanted to make small thematic updates. In addition, we're aware that too much of the value of dot bombing is driven by crits, increasing the total dot value of the target. As of this patch, crits no longer influence the duration of dots. We're also increased cause of death damage to offset some of the perceived loss. Also make it less reliant on crits overall. This, my heart still tells me this is going to be stupid. Cause of Death is just going to be stupid busted. But I could play it and then change my mind on that based on the dot. Because, let's see, if you had 4 dot, with 3 turns, that would make it 12. But with 5 turns, so on a crit, it would make it 20. So it's an 8 damage difference between whether it crits or not. So maybe now that it doesn't have that, it won't be nearly as much. Still seems kind of dumb. It is just on Wanderer, though, so we'll see. Disorienting Blast and Disorienting Blast Plus now removes all guard from the target. Okay, another way of dealing with guards. Okay, interesting. Disorienting Blast crit increased from 10 to 15%. Okay, adding a little more mastery value for a skill that directs no damage and provides some additional utility that feels thematically suitable. Sure. There's nothing wrong with more ways of getting rid of guard in this, especially since they add a militia. Really feel the frustrating of guards. Emboldening Vapors and Emboldening Vapors Plus strength tokens now increase from 1 to 2. Okay, so they gave it the physician value. Okay, interesting. Now removes all days. Now removes all days and stun prior to applying its speed token. Okay. But it gives a cooldown. Okay. At least the master does. So a mastered gets rid of stuns and days. Another way of getting rid of stuns is cool. I think that's a good one. But it has a cooldown now. Okay. Okay. I still am not totally sure in what situation that feels good, like fitting on the bar. But maybe with Wander, it fits a little better some of the other paths. Like, you have a purpose for it now. Okay, so that's good. Speed token. Applying it, there's only a couple abilities in the game that applies a speed token, too. So that's really nice. Incision Plus now deals +1 increased bleed duration. I said that. I was like, I wonder if the Plague Doctor abilities will do that. When the target has combo, in addition to the pre-existing bleed piercing that it provides. Okay, so the bleed piercing is still there, the 30%. And it also does increased duration. Okay, so that sets up for herself, too, with the cause of death if she wants. Noxious Blast. Blight reduced from 6 to 5. The crit chance goes up. Noxious Blast plus now deals 1 duration when target has combo. In addition to pre-existing Blight press piercing that it provides. Okay. We changed it to how crits and dots interact. We feel it important to include ways to enhance dot natively and controllably for some skills. Interesting. I like the +1 duration on combo. Because sometimes, like, if they have, I don't know. Sometimes it felt like hitting into combo was kind of a waste, because if they had pretty low dot res anyways, like, I would probably rather roll a 10 or 20% than use up the combo and get 30%, you know? So now that it adds +1 duration, I think that makes it feel a lot better. Ounce of Prevents and Ounce of Prevention plus launch ranks increase from 3 to 4, 3-4 to 2-3-4. Rank 2 Plague Doctor time? Okay. And then they buff the numbers. 20%, and then Master to 30, and it gains some debuff resist. Okay. I like this. Some people really get the math of prevention, and this buff is for you. We felt that it needed a small bump at the lower end and the higher end to come up with a tandem. Debuff resist also recruits the value, skill, and variety of situations with certain heroes. Yeah, this is pretty much just to give it a little bit of an oomph when you do run it, because yeah, it's I can't imagine this is a very popular skill. It's good in certain fights, and certain boss fights, but as a general, going into any fight, I feel like that buff is mostly to add it to give a little love to the people that do use it. But it is a little better now, so it can be good. Because 30% is pretty hefty. I mean, that's the same that Master Administrations gives, except this gives it to the whole team alongside debuff resist. So interesting. I didn't expect the Plague Doctor changes in here, but yeah, the Occultist is definitely more he's more intricate now, which is typically kind of what they've done with these changes. So I gave me my initial thoughts. It's hard to tell because there's a lot going on, so I'll have to look at the tooltips and really try to get into it. And then maybe I'll make a video on that also, kind of after I play it for a bit and see how that feels. I think it's really interesting though. I'm surprised that they took the healing off of Ritualist. Extra burning is going to be scary, but it can be resisted, so that's good. And he doesn't have the minus health, at least consistently. So the burn's going to be statistically a little less scary, but it'll be interesting. Yeah, so if you want to check me out, twitch.tv/Marinok, stream every day. I'm gonna be trying the boy out. Yeah, and I'll probably let you guys know my thoughts as I play into it a little more. Just because he's my boy, I'm excited to try him out. It's definitely a lot of patch notes for this. Kind of expected. So we'll see. Either way, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you very much. I know this is a long kind of like yapping video, but I appreciate it. I hope you all have a nice rest of your day. Subscribe to me and check me out and stuff. And if you guys have any thoughts yourself, if you guys have played it, please let me know. I'm always interested to hear other people's thoughts, just because everybody, you know, just because I have 3,000 hours in this game or whatever doesn't mean I don't have my my blind spots. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you all have a nice rest of the day. Subscribe to me and stuff. Thank you. Have a nice day.